Well, good night, everyone. Or, yeah, good night. That's good evening. Good night's when we say it at the end of it. Hello, how's that? Um, Welcome. Thank you for coming. And I want us to open up in prayer. And uh, then, of course, most of you know Dr. Jeff and Renee. And what an honor it is to have them as members of Real Life Church. And what a wealth of information they are. You know, many times, and Dr. Jeff can say this much better than I do, but many of our battles are fought because we have bad information. And we can win battles with good information. And so I pray that you would have ears to hear tonight, because what you're going to receive is good information that'll help us overcome many of the difficulties. We've been blaming on the devil, and the devil ain't got nothing to do with what we're buying at Publix. Amen. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Jeff and Renee. Father, we thank you for this evening. It is always our honor to learn. And tonight we have come as students to hear and to learn so that we can increase and improve our lives. We thank you, Father, for this opportunity, and we will not squander it. We will listen intently. And, Father, we will, with your help, act on that which we hear. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Dr. Jeff, Renee?
All right, I'm going to lay down the framework here for the workshop tonight. So, well, first of all, I want to thank Jimmy for letting us come and do this here. I also want to thank all of you for coming tonight. That says a lot, you know. I mean, it's easy just to kind of get into your routine and sit at home on the couch and just kind of do your thing. But to come out, you're making an effort, so we're going to make it worth your while. And then lastly, I want to thank my wife, Renee, she literally did this whole PowerPoint presentation, and she got it all together. And me, I just kind of speak on the fly because I do it every day. So anyways, to make that long story short, we've passed out two pieces of paper. So if you would grab this colorful one. Now, I have to use a disclaimer. I love this, and on the back of it, if you want to take some notes, you can write things down that we talk about that need to take some notes on. But the bottom left-hand corner, there was a misprint, so we had a Dan Quayle moment. So just please excuse me for that. But all right, so oftentimes patients will come to me, and it's a common theme, and they'll say, I have this pain, I have that pain, and I've tried this and I've tried that, and they're chasing the symptoms. And I came up with this puzzle that really breaks down into 4 quadrants that explain specifically why patients are in our clinic and how you can get yourself well. Because you can chase the symptoms all day long, but you got to get what's upstream. And this piece of information right here is going to help you raise the awareness, and then we're going to focus on one category, which is nutrition, and that's when Renee will take over. So most people, when they come in, they have a pinched nerve, meaning, they're actually, Bryce, are you here? Come up, hon. Can you bring me the spine? The spine. I know. I want him to bring it. I'm trying to incorporate him. All right. Bryce, grab the spine, please. All right. So basically, when they come in, they automatically, and they're right. Biomechanically, they can go out of alignment. So the body works off the nervous system, and it's protected by these vertebrae. And when one or more of these segments shifts out of alignment, it pinches nerves. And then that's what causes patients to have pain. Then you've got muscles, ligaments, and tendons that attach into here, and that's what causes some of those, those real knots, those tight knots, and people can't turn their head as far. And so that's why it's important to be adjusted, because we actually get to the cause of the problem by removing the interference, giving patients better flexibility, mobility, decrease arthritis, all that good stuff. So the importance of chiropractic goes far beyond just musculoskeletal, because it increases your immune system as well. So when patients come in physically, they'll say, to bring the awareness, the reason why they get it is accidents, bad shoes, bad mattresses that they sleep on, micro traumas because they're doing the same repetitive motions all day long, and they sit too long, or they sit in bad seats. So that's 8 out of 10 people. Then we move into what affects a lot of folks, which is the emotional. I've treated patients before where you can't quantify it, but they've got a lot of just emotional challenges that they've gone through: death, divorces, diseases, or unbelief, that kind of stuff. So it's important to realize that there is a spiritual component in the Bible. It talks about that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities of darkness. So it's important to exercise your spiritual life as well. That's not just showing up for church on Sunday. That means in the Word every day. That's your sword. You got to sharpen it. And you have to realize that some people invite this stuff in. They open up the door for negativity. Words mean things. Jimmy talks about that all the time. If you say, I'm too old, or I'll never get well, those things just curse you and lock you down. And from my experience, we speak into it even though it may not have happened, but we speak into it because it will happen. And we give him thanks in advance for it. And you would be surprised on how much better things go. Cindy, our front desk office manager, perfect example, her husband fell in a ditch and he's got bad knees anyways, and he was like crawling, and she was praying for him, and she was giving God the thanks for healing him, even though he wasn't healed. And by the time that later that day came, he was walking around without a cane. He felt great. So she says, Dr. Jeff, I noticed something. She's like, I'm giving God thanks even if I don't see it yet. I'm giving him thanks. So if that's a gold nugget tip, please, whatever you guys are being challenged by, give God the thanks. He's already gone before us in it, all right? Environmentally, some people work in tough, difficult environments, and that causes a lot of inflammation, which is the common theme of why patients end up in our office. Inflammation, meaning inflammation in the nervous system, inflammation in their body, all throughout their body, and environmental. If they work with moldy environments, or let's say you work at like BMW and you smell and you're breathing in all that rubber and those fragments, those metal fragments, over time that breaks your body down and that causes pain. And then lastly, chemically, and that's where Renee is going to take over. And basically, the foods that we eat, unfortunately, by and large, the majority are genetically modified and engineered. We were not designed to eat that stuff. What does that mean? That means that food's made out of layers of seeds, and of that layer of seeds, they've injected what we call as glyphosate in the seed. And glyphosate's the active ingredient in Roundup. And so they've done that because it germinates and populates things a lot better or faster, but yet it's deadly for you because you're ingesting it. So anytime you go out to eat, whether you go to California Dreamin', if you go out to any conventional restaurant, that if it doesn't say organic, non-GMO, you're eating that stuff, and then you wonder why there's so much inflammation in your joints. So today, our hopes is that this information that she goes over raises your awareness, allows you to make the changes, and you can make the changes. You can. You just don't speak bad that you're too old or I can't. That's Dr. Jeff, you can afford that food. Everybody can afford what we're talking about. So don't let anything be a barrier. All right, so with that said, Renee.
Thank you, Dr. Jeff. So I think I know most everyone here. And for those of you online, my name is Renee, new last name Abrams. I'm still getting used to that. So just a little bit about me really quick before we get started. So I am a registered dietitian. I did consulting work for about 2 years out of college and then decided to take a break from that. But with all that being said, nutrition has remained my passion. And what's really neat, and Dr. Jeff was just talking about this, to see all the different puzzle pieces that fit into our health and that fit into our wellness. So just kind of a groundwork, who here has heard of the ketogenic diet? Just raise of hands. So that's good. A good portion of you have heard about the ketogenic diet. Who here has done the ketogenic diet? Anybody? 1, 2, 3? All right. 4? Perfect. It's good to know your audience. So that's going to be the primary focus of what I'm discussing today. I do want to leave the disclaimer. This isn't the end-all, be-all diet, right? There's many diets out there. There's many options and different things to try. So this is just one layer, one topic that we're talking about that relates to inflammation, like Dr. Jeff was talking about. Wanting to reduce the inflammation in our bodies so we can be the best versions of ourselves. For me, my journey to sharing, so much of it is about energy and so much of it is about mental clarity. I started to realize this at a fairly young age, and when I was in sports, I could tell that when I ate certain foods, I felt differently than when I ate other types of foods, and my performance showed it. I was a runner and cross country and track. So that started my journey. And then as I went into college, there was definitely times where I wasn't eating so healthy, and I was tired all the time, and I was like, why can't I remember? I would study and I couldn't think, like things weren't clicking. But then when I would go into a really healthy diet, a ketogenic type diet, I felt so smart and things were just clicking. And then that even ties into the spiritual aspect of things. I didn't know it at the time, but when you are so clean and you remove some of those barriers, right, it's so much easier to hear, right? You've got that energy, you're cognitively engaged. You can kind of compare it to, think about when you're praying after a really good night's sleep and praying after you haven't had any sleep at all. You feel totally different, right? And your prayers might even be totally different. So thinking it relatable, our bodies are our temples, and the things that we put in really do impact the things that come even out of our mouths. And I go back to that sleep analogy. Sleep's a key component of that too. If you're not getting sleep, it's so hard sometimes to feel like you're thriving, right? And being the best for God's kingdom, and really just feeling you're being a true servant. So anyways, I'm going to start digging into what is the ketogenic diet. So going through here. So really quick, you have in front of you a resource guide. For those on TV, we will post this later. I have to say, a lot of what I've learned is just by friends of like Jeff's, Dr. Danny Pompa. There's another gentleman that is a ketogenic expert, Dr. David Jockers. Even Netflix, The Magic Pill is a great documentary that will really get you pumped up and a little convicted about the benefits of a ketogenic diet. I highly recommend that documentary. It really got me motivated. I know that much. So anyways, there's a wealth. I'm going to go over these a little bit later, but there's a wealth of resources here for you guys to walk away with. And I'm also going to say, just like your faith, this is your journey. This is your health journey. The social media and just the media in general wants to give you opinions about what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. Just know that these base has scientific research behind it, and it has proof. So, don't be discouraged if you try to start down this diet and people are, why are you eating that? That's no fun. Or that's a bunch of hogwash, or whatever that might be, right? It's your journey, and stick to it, just like your faith. You've got to be involved in it. You've got to make a commitment to it. You've got to learn. You've got to spend time in it. You can't expect somebody else to do it for you. I think that's another expectation, is we think our doctors are the people who should be telling us what to do and guiding us every step along the way. And of course, that's their jobs. But really, it comes down to your commitment and to learning, just like it is faith, and to take the action. So, all right, exciting stuff. So, getting into, for those of you who don't know, the ketogenic diet. So any just quick, for those of you who don't know, guesses of what that might mean, or things you've heard about the ketogenic diet. Anybody want to get involved? Nobody wants to talk? No? Okay. So ketogenic diet, basically it's getting your body to go from a sugar-burning state to a fat-burning state. So naturally, our bodies burn off of glucose. It's not a very clean fuel, though. A stat I learned by going into ketosis, which is a high-fat diet, it gives you 14 times the amount of energy in a fat molecule than a glucose molecule. So more energy, more pack for your power kind of thing. So really, it's just going from a sugar-burning phase to a fat-burning phase. So what does that mean for the types of foods you're eating? That means you're going to be having a majority high-fat diet. Anywhere from 60 to 80% of your diet is consumed from fats. So think about like things like avocados, coconut oil, olive oil, just coconut milk, those high fatty foods, right? And we'll go into a little more of that in just a minute. And then it's going into a moderate protein and a low carb diet. So when you do that, your body has to shift from burning those glucose molecules, sugar, right, to using fat as the primary source of fuel. And with that, it's a cleaner burn. There's a lot of benefits that can come from that state of ketosis. Something else that I want to make sure that I disclaim as well is It can be a trial and error, right? So if you start to journey down this diet, it may not be for everyone, right? And there's some other things we can do, and we'll talk about that too. But this is the primary source of what we're going to be reviewing. So I want to go up. So this just gives a nice definition, textbook definition. Most people in the society are in the state of sugar or glucose metabolism. And nutritional ketosis is psychological state when the body switches from burning sugar to fat, just like I just said. And with that, there comes a whole host of health benefits. So for those of you who've done it, do you want to give me just what I think the two of you over here have talked about? You've been ketogenic. What's been your biggest benefit? Few weeks, okay, that's great. 13 pounds, 2 weeks. Sure, and loads of energy. Sure. Sure. So he was just saying he did it for 2 weeks, lost 14 pounds, increased energy. We hear that a lot. Some other things, improved mood, because what you're really doing when you go from burning sugar to burning fat, you're helping to control your hormone levels and your insulin levels is really what it's about. This is a story about hormones and balancing hormones. So when you move from that state of glucose and the spikes and the downs and go to that fat metabolism and your insulin levels aren't spiking up and down so dramatically, you start to see improved mood, blood sugar regulation, memory and cognition improvements. I'm telling you, this is like one of the best benefits of it. You're going to be saying to yourself, man, I didn't realize I was that smart, because you're going to be coming up with things quick. You're going to be able to think clearly and quickly. Anti-aging, relief from chronic pain. This is what Dr. Jeff was just talking about, right? When your body's inflamed, what we don't realize is it kind of goes back to that hormone story. When we're spiking insulin all the time, it sets pathways down for other hormones that cause an inflammatory response. I don't know if a lot of you have heard a lot about, the gluten-free diet. That's commonly known for anti-inflammatory, getting off gluten and reducing inflammation. I know that when I've gotten into state of ketosis, Jeff will adjust me, and I adjust so much easier in a state of ketosis than when I'm off of that ketogenic type diet. Even Jeff, he has me sometimes work on his back at night, and man, his spine will pop like crazy when we're eating clean versus when we're in that feast mode. So really amazing things. And just keep thinking to yourself, what is your one thing you want to improve? What is it for you? Is it weight control? Is it better memory? Is it energy levels? Whatever it might. Is it pain? Just keep thinking about what it is that you're trying to overcome, and let that be your mantra for why you're doing some of the things you're doing. All right. I mean, these are just some of the benefits listed here. There's more and more benefits. There's things talking that are disease related. The ketogenic was first discovered back in the 20s for seizures. So a lot of folks who were having difficulties with seizures, they were put on this ketogenic diet, and they discovered that helped with epilepsy and reducing seizures. So, I mean, the studies go back from the beginning of time, and you even have to ask yourself, well, why aren't we doing more of this in our society? But a lot of that, I'm not going to get on that soapbox, but follow the dollar sign. That's all I have to say. I got a few laughs out of that one. All right. Okay. So, before I get into the nuts and bolts of just, the ketogenic diet, I do want to give you some insights to adaptation. So just full disclosure, as you start down this journey, it's always important to know what you're getting into, right? We've all been there when we start a new journey with something, and, well, they didn't warn me about that, or they didn't tell me I was going to have that side effect. So one important thing to know is that as you start going from that sugar burning and you're changing your carbohydrate load to a fat load, you can experience what's called the keto flu. So basically, it's your body's adapting to that fat burning state or the carb burning state to the fat burning state. So some things you can feel are fatigue, headaches, nausea, insomnia, irritability, upset stomach. Just know that these are temporary and just to push through them. They usually don't last longer than 1 week. I would say for those of you here who can outlast something for a week, I hope a show of hands. You guys are a quiet audience. Yes, thank you. So just keep pushing through, but I know for me, it was a couple days, and I was in ketosis within 5 days. It all just depends on you. It may take you a couple weeks to get into ketosis, but just know, just push through, and you'll get there. There's some 7 ways to prevent keto flu. Back off carbs slowly. I'm going to be talking about that in just a minute. Increase your fat intake. Increase your salt and mineral intake. Society tells you no salt, no sodium. The key is get that Celtic sea salt, and you can have up to 2 teaspoons a day. Put it in your water, get bone broth, put it in your bone broth. That'll help ease some of your symptoms. Get some exercise. Something you might want to even consider if you exercise regularly now, back that down. You may just want to consider just walking or not exercising at all. I know the first week usually of me in ketosis, I might walk a couple times a week, but that's it. Don't bombard your system. Give your system an ability to kind of recap and regenerate and adapt to this new way of being. Reduce stress. I think we're all in a place of healthy prayer can help you with that. And if all else fails, increase your carb intake just a little bit to get you through that hurdle or that bump until that next day and start over again. That's the thing with the health journey. Don't get discouraged. If you start down it and you stop, don't get discouraged. Just hop back on. You know what to do. We all have moments of weakness. We all have those days where we're just not feeling it. Just listen to your body. Your body's designed to tell you exactly what to do. Sometimes you got to fight through, right, depending on how you've been treating your body. But give yourself some grace. So if you start down this path and you get 2 weeks in and you fall off the wagon, so to speak, you go on vacation, enjoy yourself. Go on vacation. When you get back on the wagon. So. And then I mentioned some of the symptoms already. So just add some of those things. Hydration is important. Lots of water, at least half of your body weight in water, so in ounces. All right, so the next little piece here I'm going to talk about when you're starting. So we talked about that high fat, moderate protein, low carb. So eating too little fat in calories. So top 5 mistakes people make on the ketogenic diet. They start off by eating too little fat. So we're going to give you some resource guides that have some free ebooks, and it tells you recipes, it tells you what to do. So like I was saying, things like avocados, what's called MCT oil, that comes from coconuts. It's medium chain triglycerides. Things like eating whole eggs, right? They have some nice healthy fats and proteins in them, right? Even the animal fat we eat. You heard Dr. Jeff talk about eating organic or eating foods that are not genetically modified. What happens, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, when you don't eat organic meats, basically, or free range, or grass-fed, you've heard those terms, right? Basically, if those terms aren't on there, that means that they're feeding the cattle or the chickens mostly corn or grains. So what happens is their fat compensation changes. So composition, I can't talk about there, changes. So just like yours changes, whether you're eating a high carb diet or a healthy fat diet, theirs changes too. So there's a lot of importance in the meat. Meat has gotten a bad rap, especially red meat. Over the last couple years from the American Heart Association, they're actually coming out publicly now and saying, maybe we didn't have that whole notion so right. It's more about the quality of meats that you're eating. Still want to keep moderate protein, but making sure you're eating the organic meats that have those healthy fats in them. We're so used to maybe making hamburger meat and draining off all the fat. Well, if you're eating grass-fed organic beef, you actually don't want to do that because those are some really healthy fats for you and can help to fill you up. So, and it adds a lot of flavor too. So you don't have to feel guilty about draining off those healthy fats. So that's a really nice, good way. Another little tangent I'm going to go off on too is, we get so caught up, Dr. Jeff mentioned this, in the cost. So some things to remind yourself, this is your health, this is your body. You know, we're so easy to go and spend money on clothes and fancy shoes and purses or whatever, cars for guys, whatever it might be. But you know, maybe you need to take a look back at your priorities. And the other good news is places like Costco, Trader Joe's, Aldi's even has some really great organic options. So, you know, there's a way to eat organic on a healthy budget. And eating organic just means there's foods not genetically modified, and it hasn't been chemically altered, right? So very, very important. You don't realize this. Dr. Jeff was talking about as part of his little puzzle. Even the chemicals like pesticides that we put on our foods can be detrimental to our bodies. So we want to make sure as much as possible, free range, grass-fed, organic meats especially, and foods and produce just in general. So like I said, hit up Aldi, hit up Trader Joe's. I think Lidl is a new one that has some organic options from a grocery store. And of course, Whole Foods and Earth Fare. Some people call it Whole Paycheck. Sprouts, you know. So there's lots of options there. So make sure you're getting that healthy fat coconut if you like coconut oil. Guacamole, go crazy on. You know, even ghee and butter. That's another thing we've been told butter's bad. The key is the quality of the butter, right? Making sure it's butter from grass-fed. What's that? Not margarine. Nope. Ghee or butter. So ghee, actually, you don't even have to refrigerate it. It just comes usually in a glass jar. It's amazing. Ghee is ghee. Great question. All healthy fats. So believe it or not, it's pretty easy to get your fats in. And we have some of those resources. There's recipes for fat bombs if you go to some of these websites that you can take as well to kind of get your fat content up. So eating too much protein. So another mistake with going into the ketogenic diet, right? We're increasing our fat. A lot of people associate the ketogenic diet with the Atkins diet. And while they are similar in approach, one major difference is the Atkins diet doesn't limit your protein intake. So you want to make sure that you're not eating too much protein either. And this gives you a nice little equation. So 1 gram per kilogram for your body weight. So if you weighed 150 pounds, you would divide that by 2.2, and that tells you you would need 68 grams of protein. So, and some of you are thinking, well, how in the heck am I going to know how many grams of protein am I eating? There are so many food apps out there you can get online, and you can enter in your food, and it'll calculate it for you. And I'm trying to remember I think it's MyFitnessPal is a really nice one because it'll even give you a graph and it'll show you what percentage of your food comes from what food groups. So those are nice ways to keep yourself accountable and just document the foods that you're eating. So that's a second mistake of the ketogenic diet. So high fat, don't eat too much protein because if you eat too much protein, what I was talking about, it can spike insulin. It's a hormone game. We don't want to spike insulin. We want to keep those insulin levels nice and moderate. And then, of course, eating too many carbohydrates. This is a nice little key. At the very bottom there, it says net carbs equals total carbs minus fiber. So fiber is really important. Fiber you find in vegetables and fruits, nuts and seeds. And so one way that you can really help balance carbohydrates, especially if you're eating things like vegetables, you'll see on there, well, gosh, a carrot actually has a lot of more carbohydrates than I realized. What you can do is take the carbohydrates that are listed minus the fiber that's in that food, and that'll give you what's called the net carb, and that's the number you care about. So don't get caught up if you see, I've had carrots and celery and some root vegetables, and it says my carbohydrate's really high. Why is that? But you just got to be cognitive and just subtract out those grams of fiber. All right. So really quick, we were talking about vegetables. Bryce had something he wanted to share because he's been on this journey with us too. And when we're talking about vegetables and starchy foods, something to remember, you don't want starchy vegetables. And Bryce wanted to share something with us about what's not a vegetable. Bryce, can you tell us what a vegetable is not? Here he comes. So vegetable pizza, veggies on a pizza doesn't count as a ketogenic meal. So Bryce wanted to remind you that pizza is not considered a vegetable, even though it has tomato sauce on it. All right, thanks, Bryce. All right, mistake number 4, not consuming enough salts or water. We talked a little bit about that, and poor sleep habits. Something else I'll recommend, I know when I transition into ketogenic, sometimes I do experience a little insomnia initially. You can get some melatonin or 5-HTP, and that will help you. I would say start small. I take like a milligram of melatonin when I'm transferring into this diet. Jeff can take up to 5, which I don't recommend going there unless you've had experience taking melatonin. But that's another way to, yeah, he takes 5, I take 1. I'll have nightmares if I take too much melatonin. So just a warning, start slow and you can always build yourself up. But that's another nice way to overcome if you're having some poor sleep habits, melatonin or 5-HTP. Start at 1 milligram and you can always work your way up. Okay, so now get over here. Let's talk about getting keto adapted. So going from a, kind of that low carb, there's a couple ways you can attack this. Let me just say that. For me, I'm more black and white. I wanted to just jump into it, right? I just wanted to get into ketosis and I wanted to see results quicker. I wasn't ready to be patient with it. And one way that I approached it, I started off with a fast. And Jeff and I did a water fast, and I think by day 3 I was in ketosis. So one way, and it's a resource on there too, that you test whether or not you're in keto or ketosis, is getting a blood glucose meter. I think most of us probably are aware of what that is, but you want to find one that also can test ketone strips. So you'll have a blood glucose strip that you'll test, and then you have a ketone strip that you test. And there's a link to that on your resource sheet there. You can just Bing it or Google it, and it'll tell you. But every morning I get up, that's the first thing I do. I walk downstairs, I prick myself. You're going to time out? Sure.
Sorry, y'all.
Okay, how's that? Loud. Can we turn the volume down?
You give me a second.
Okay. What's that? Sounds good? All right. Okay. Yep, so first thing I do, once you get your blood glucose ketone monitor, I come down and I prick my finger. It's not as bad as it sounds. Actually, Bryce even will do it with me sometimes. He thinks it's cool to monitor his blood glucose. But you you prick yourself, so you'll have one prick, but you need 2 sources of blood. You'll have 2 strips. So one's a blood glucose strip, and then the second will be your ketone strip. So you use your same device. So first I prick myself, I get my blood, I capture it in the little strip, and in 5 seconds, I test my blood glucose. Your blood glucose fasting should be less than 90, and it'll give you the millimoles or whatever it is on your meter, but it should be less than 90. If you're not less than 90, you need to really focus on getting your carbohydrates down, right? So less than 90. And then I take that same dose of blood, I just kind of keep it squeezed on my finger, and then I test for my ketones. I take my blood glucose strip out, I put my ketone strip in, and then in a matter of 10 seconds, it'll tell me what my ketone levels are. Now expect day 1, say first morning you've done the ketogenic, you've done low carb, and you test your ketones and it says 0.1. Don't be discouraged. What the goal you're looking for to be in ketose is 0.5 to 5.0. and that's located in some of the resources I've given you. Like I said, it took me, if I didn't when I was fasting, it took me 3 days to get into ketosis. If I'm going into just a ketogenic diet without fasting, it took me about 5 days. It all just depends on how quickly you jump into that low carb and how quickly you can get into that state of ketosis. But the good news is I'm ketogenic right now, and I'm telling you, I have tons of energy. I feel amazing. Even I lost 4 pounds in the first week, and I didn't have a ton of weight to lose. It just happened. I wasn't working. I didn't do it to lose weight. I just did it to have energy and have quick thinking process. I'm in the last month of our sales, and I thought, oh man, we're going to be busy. I really need some extra brain power, so I'm getting into ketogenic. So just kind of recapping that. So you'll need that monitor to know if you're in ketosis or not. And it's great, too, because it tells you what your blood glucose levels are, which is a really important key indicator of even inflammation. If your insulin levels are high all the time, you know that you're going to be in an inflamed state. So really, really important that you know that. So there's a couple ways you can get into keto adapted. For some of you, just to get a read, how many here would like to just jump in the water, do a fast, or just get into ketogenic, 10 grams of carbs or less the first week? We got a few of you. Yeah, you just want to get in and get to it. So we're going to get to you in just a minute. But for the rest of you who didn't raise your hand, what you're seeing, I'm going to go to this next slide so you can see it a little bit better. Oops, I went to the wrong one. Give me a second here. All right. Nope, still the wrong one. I didn't go. Here we go. All right. So the first 3 to 7 days, what you can do to slowly get into it is eat like you always have, and use this time to get rid of the food in your pantry or your refrigerator or anything that's not healthy. And you need to track this, right? So get a food diary. I highly recommend like MyFitnessPal. That's a really, really great one to recommend to show what you're eating. It breaks down your fat, your protein, and your carbohydrates. So you don't have to think too much about it, right? For some of you, that probably is going to be a learning curve. You're like, well, how do I know what's a carb? And how do I know what's a healthy carb? And how do I know what's a healthy protein? Those little apps will be a huge, huge value to you. So you can start off the first 3 to 7 days just kind of going through, emptying out your pantry. And then the second week, you can say, for example, you tracked your progress and you had 200 grams of carbs. Well, that second week, then your goal would be, I'm going to cut that in half. So this is going to help you slowly get into ketosis. This approach is about a 4 to 6 week approach. So it all just depends on you and how quickly you want to get into it. If you're not eating that many carbs, you might get into it in 3 weeks, right? So it's just all dependent upon how quickly you want to go. Sure.
You're saying empty your pantry.
Yep.
What do you mean? Get rid of the food in there, give it to somebody, or what?
Or eat it.
Or eat it, okay.
Or eat it.
I just want to know what you mean.
So for those of you money-conscious folks who've just probably gone to the grocery store, that's a great question. You're thinking, I just bought all this food. What am I going to do with it? Just eat it. And then track that, because that'll be a good starting point. You can track and see, oh, man, I'm eating 200 carbs a day. I know that that's not on the ketogenic diet. And it might be a good educational exercise for you, right? Or you could donate it or give it away. So it's really up to you. This is just to show you that you can phase into it. And some people rather do that so they don't have the dramatic effect of maybe the keto flu. For those of you who eat a fairly low-carb diet already, you probably wouldn't mind just jumping in. But if you know that you eat a lot of carbs as it stands today, this might be the approach for you to slowly transition to it. And you'll start to feel a difference already anyways, because your blood glucose levels won't be going like this all day long, right? So just pay attention, track what you're eating. And I keep losing my slide. I don't know why. Give me a minute here. So that's one. All right, there we were. Okay, and then to the next one. There we go. Now I'm back on track. And then it just says, by the 4th to 6th week, your carbs should be down to around the 20 to 30 grams, and they have been replaced with healthy fats. So, and I'm going to tell you another trick to get your healthy fats in. By the end of this week, you should be producing ketones unless your protein levels are too high. So once again, your protein calories should be roughly 15 to 25% of your calorie total. So this just gives you a nice little breakdown of if you consume 2,000 calories, what that breakdown will look like. Once again, these apps, I highly, highly recommend you document what you eat. It's going to be so educational for you to see. I know that when I've done it in the past, I've been shocked by, man, I didn't think I ate that many carbohydrates today, but I actually had like 150. So it can sneak up on you quickly, especially if they're low fiber carbohydrates. Now, if you add the fiber back in, that makes a big difference, right? Because you have that net carb that we're talking about. All right, moving. Yeah. I like these questions.
Okay. I think it was a page back, and it said to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, go to bed by 10 o'clock. If the keto diet is going to give you all this energy, you know, it may be hard for some people to go to bed, get into bed by 10.
Yeah, it's true. Your sleep habits, I know for me, a lot of times once I've been on keto for a while, I only require 7 hours of sleep. When I'm non-keto, I'm more like 9. So, you know, you might need less sleep, and that's where it's just talking about the importance of getting on a cycle and keeping yourself committed to that, and that's where things like melatonin or 5-HTP can really help you if you're not, because anyways, it can start to come into I didn't go to bed till midnight, but now I got to get up at 6, and then it leads to some other bad habits, because a lot of times when we're tired, what's the first thing we want to grab for? Coffee, carbohydrates, sugar. We want that quick pick-me-up, right, which is not on the diet plan. That's why they're talking about why sleep is so important. Coffee is on the diet plan. It is on the diet plan. Yes, that's a great, great question. Actually, Jeff and I have been doing the keto coffee, which you guys, I think, are going to love. We're obsessed with it. So basically, I'll tell you now since you asked. First thing we have in the morning, and the other great thing about this, before I tell you what it is, this keto coffee, you can have in a fasting state, so it doesn't count as a meal. So it shouldn't raise your blood sugar levels. It should keep them nice and balanced in the morning. Actually, I'm not even hungry in the morning. I usually don't eat until about 11 o'clock after having this, which is a good thing. It's intermittent fasting. So basically what it is, it's about anywhere from 8 to 10 ounces of organic coffee. There's another big hit that you guys need to pay attention to is making sure you have quality coffee, organic coffee. Coffee beans are known to be, if they're not organic, have lots of pesticides on them. They can have mold on them. So get a good quality coffee, so important. But anyway, 6 to 10 ounces of coffee, hot coffee. And then it's 2 tablespoons of the ghee that I was telling you about, Ghee, and they have like a vanilla bean that's also really good, or you can just get a regular ghee. Yeah, it doesn't have any sugar, carbs in it, just the vanilla. And then 2 tablespoons of MCT oil, those medium chain triglycerides, or coconut oil. You can use either one. And then you blend it up in a blender, or you can just stir it until all of the oil melts. I'm telling you, it is so divine and so fabulous. It has such a great flavor, and it'll keep you full. And if you're one of those people who likes their Starbucks lattes, right, the caramel macchiato people of the world, you can get stevia drops and drop, depending on what the bottle says, but 2 to 4 drops of stevia in it, which is acceptable as a alternative sweetener, and that won't spike your blood sugar levels either. So that is a nice little trick. Yes, you can have coffee on this. So that is a really great recipe. It's in some of those resources I was telling you about. What's that?
No bread or breakfast for
No bread. No bread. So something else that's a component of this, and I'm actually going to recommend one of Jeff's friends, Dr. Danny Pompa, does an amazing video on this, and he talks about the feast or famine. If you go to his Facebook, I think he did it a couple weeks ago. It's on his Facebook page, or if you go to his Cellular Healing TV, he does a really great presentation. We're not going to have time for this today, but he talks a lot about intermittent fasting and the importance of that. And basically it goes back to, at the beginning I talked about hormone levels, right? And not spiking insulin and giving our bodies kind of a time to check out and do the cellular things they're supposed to do. And so intermittent fasting is a key part of that. I know Jeff and I do this almost daily. We don't even eat breakfast. That keto coffee or bulletproof coffee is another popular name for it, is our breakfast. And we drink lots of water in the morning as well. And I'm telling you, we both get through the day of tons of energy. You feel mentally, that mental acuity, and you're really off to the races. Now, if you are someone who prefers to have breakfast, things like eggs are great. There's some really good recipes on there for that. You can do turkey bacon, you can do regular bacon. I know that it's not as clean of an animal, but turkey bacon is another great option. You could even do just take a tablespoon and eat just 2 tablespoons of coconut oil for your breakfast. I know it sounds really odd. Yeah, it does sound really odd, but it'll keep you full. That's the difference too, is fats will keep you a lot fuller than a carbohydrate will. So a lot of times you'll see, you eat a carb breakfast and then come 10 o'clock, your blood sugar's dropping and you're getting irritable and you're thinking, when is lunch? And that's because it spiked your insulin and you're coming back down and you're looking for that next high. And what's your next high going to be? That next carbohydrate, right? So eating those fats in the morning, and that's where the benefit of the coffee really helps to stabilize your appetite. You'll be surprised how little you eat once you start eating these healthy fats and how full you feel and satisfied you are when you start eating these healthy fats and taking those carbs away. You're smirking. Do you have a comment you want to make? Oh, that you can do the coffee. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's amazing. But, so anyways, kind of getting back to it, right? So, we got another question.
For someone who's already type 2 diabetic, would that coffee be a great alternative, or there's something else you would suggest?
So that's a great question. She asked, if you're type 2 diabetic, is that a good alternative for you? So what I would say, you're probably monitoring your blood sugar levels already anyways, right? I can't tell you what to do. I would say let the proof in the pudding. I would give it a try. See what happens with that fat. See what happens to your blood glucose levels. There's a book I really, really want you to read. It's called The Complete Guide to Fasting, and this is by Dr. Jason Fung. I would recommend everybody to read this, quite frankly. You will learn so much about your health, and it talks a lot about ketogenic and your hormone levels. And taking a side note here, Dr. Jason Fung actually specializes and works with type 2 diabetics and renal patients. So that's his specialty. He's a medical doctor, and this in here is what he uses to help. Actually, he gets a lot of his patients, kind of back to normal, so to speak. So.
How do you spell his last name?
Oh, F-U-N-G. Dr. Jason Fung, F-U-N-G, with Jimmy Moore. I read this book on our honeymoon, believe it or not, but I couldn't put it down. It was so good. No, sincerely, I felt guilty when we were going out to eat, and I was reading all this good information. I'm like, I can't believe I'm eating this dessert right now. But Jeff's not that boring that I had to read this on my honeymoon. I'm a geek when it comes to nutrition. I love reading this stuff. So anyways, but no, this book is amazing. So I definitely recommend it. He also has a book, if weight loss is something, and not just for weight loss. This is just talking about controlling your body's insulin. He has another book called The Obesity Code. I'm not all the way through this one yet. I'm about a quarter of the way through, but he explains why it's about our hormones and not about the calories we put in. And what if, the types of foods, the quality of foods, right? So much we've been told for so long that it's just simple calories in, calories out. Oh, all calories are created equal. That is not the case. Eating a Twinkie and eating a sweet potato don't have the same effect on your blood sugar levels, trust me. So it's all about the quality, but this is another great one. Once again, the obesity code, Dr. Jason Fung. I'm not all the way through, but it just gives some really great perspective on, it's really about our hormones and what can we do to have an impact those hormone levels. You know, that can be insulin. I mean, everything in our body is regulated by hormones, right? So what has the biggest impact on really setting the bar and setting those hormone levels in the proper place? So ketogenic diet is one of those resources you have, and fasting is another one. So I'm not going to dig in a lot into fasting tonight, but maybe that's round 2 that we can talk about at another time. So on to the next here. I'm going to pull up there, and once again, I'm using this is all coming from, and I put that on your resource page, this is all coming from Dr. David Jockers, this information that I'm putting up here, so I want to make sure I give him full credibility. I bought his keto kit. This is just talking about, actually, we're one ahead here. Let me go back. So this is talking about the carb phasing, which is kind of hard to see on the screen. But for those of you, the first week, it's eating less than 10 grams of carbs. So for those of you who raised your hand, you want to jump in right away and get a ketogenic state. Eat less than 10 grams of carbs per day, week 1. And like I said, it may take 5 to 7 days for you to get there, but you can get there. Second week, eat less than 20 grams of carbs per day. Third week, eat less than 30 grams of carbs per day. Fourth week, eat less than 40 grams. And by the 5th week, you should be able to eat up to 50 grams of carbs and still be in a ketogenic state. So that's just a really great way to kind of start off your journey into the ketogenic diet. And once again, just make sure you're measuring your blood glucose levels and your ketone levels. And stress is an important one. I want to warn you, and I'm going to give Jeff a hard time. I noticed a trend. Jeff in the morning is a talker, and he gets up. He's usually up an hour or 2 hours before I even get out of bed. He's an early morning riser. And it was funny. There was 2 mornings that I got up a little later because I work from home and I can do that. And he was already gone and out the door. And those 2 mornings, my blood sugar levels were significantly lower than the mornings where I was welcomed with, "Hey, did you see blah, 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 blah," and he's off to the races and he's talking. So this is not a dig on Jeff. It's just a point to say that stress levels really can make an impact on your blood sugar levels, on your success in diet, right? So just be mindful of that. If you're not seeing the results you want to see, stress does play a big key factor in that. So I'm not picking on Jeff. I love him, obviously, and he's just full energy in the morning. Let me tell you what, sometimes I have to be like, "Can you give me 15 minutes? Just 15 minutes." But he's great. So anyways, just keep that in mind. It's a component of this diet and this journey. And I think I want to make sure you're getting through. So here we go. Now we're digging into some of these resources. So the best foods to eat on the ketogenic diet, good fats for you over there who is like, "I'm getting tired of eating bacon." You don't have to. So avocados, grass-fed butter or ghee, coconut oil. Coconut oil may seem expensive. Go to Costco. You get like a huge tub of organic coconut oil for $10. It'll last you a month or more, depending on, what's that? Yeah, and you get it. It's so reasonable. I'm telling you, if you don't have a Costco membership or going to some of these places, get one. They have some really great options to really save on your budget. Coconut milk. Coconut milk is also, you can get it in the can. I will warn you, if you're buying it in the carton, just be sure you look at the nutrition facts label because sometimes they add sugar to it. It's just not, make sure it says unsweetened, right? And then it's just coconut milk. When I'm buying coconut milk to make food with, I use the can, the BPA organic coconut milk. I make chia pudding out of it. I put it into other different recipes. Ice cream, keto ice cream you can make out of it, which is really, really good. Even Bryce was eating it. So it's kid approved. He's back there waving. So anyways,
Coconut butter, that is a little different than coconut oil. Coconut butter is, just look for the word coconut butter. It's really nice addition. I make a almond bread, and it's one of Jeff's favorites, and I put that coconut butter on it, and I just broil it and toast it in the oven, and it's just an amazing, amazing treat. So there's some really great recipes in here for you guys on some of those resources I gave you. Dig into some of those resources. And I think my favorite one so far, I will tell you, and I've gotten recipes, the Ultimate Keto Guide. That's a really, really good one with some good recipes. That ice cream is in this one. So some really good resources for you guys to tap into. But MCT oil, you buy that, it's in a container and it pours out. It's always liquid. It doesn't get hard like the coconut oil. SCT oil, pasture-raised eggs, olives, and olive oil. So those are all some really good examples of good fats. Non-starchy vegetables and herbs. So the key to vegetables, non-starchy. So sweet potato is starchy. Carrots are more starchy. Any kind of potato, right, is more starchy. So some of the non-starchy, celery, cucumbers, spinach, kale, collard greens, broccoli. I mean, you can read the list here. And some awesome, awesome spices. We have so many spices we use to flavor things. It's such a great asset to have when you're going keto, and it's fun. So some non-starchy veggies and herbs, and we're in summer, so these things are fresh, right? You can get them cheap, and they're fresh, and they're so yummy good. Low glycemic fruit, really just lemons and limes. You can have as much as you like, but berries, less than 1/4 of a cup per day. Just keep track of your net carbs once again. Berries are really important to make sure you get organic because they're like little sponges. Those pesticides absorb really easily into those berries. So as much as you can, try to get them organic. We a lot of times buy like blueberries and strawberries frozen, organic at Costco. Very, very affordable. And now, because they're in season, you can get them pretty cheap at the supermarket. But when they're not in season, look to those frozen options. Throw them into smoothies or, make other things out of them if you're baking. They make really cost-effective, good options. Clean protein. We talked a little bit about this. Grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish. Wild is really, really important. If you took a piece of salmon that was farm-raised and a piece of salmon that was wild, and you looked at those little lines in the fillet, the fat would look completely different. The one in the farm-raised is going to be like white and thick, and the orange color of the salmon is going to be much more opaque versus wild-caught is going to be that deep orange, and the thin lines of the fat, you can just see the difference. It goes back to talking about those farm-raised fish are probably fed corn or other modified ingredients, so their fat content isn't as healthy as a wild-caught fish. So wild-caught fish is really important. And just pay attention to sales. At your Earth Fair has some really, really great sales on some of these things. Jeff and I take advantage for sure. Organic poultry, wild game such as bison, lamb, elk, deer, duck. Chicken, we love to grill chicken. You can do chicken, and even, things like chicken thighs and chicken wings, right? You get the darker meat. It's really good. It's actually has more fat, has more flavor. It's always kind of gotten the bad reputation, but go for that dark meat. It's really, really wonderful. And it has more healthy fats in it. Nuts and seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, on and on and on. We go through a lot of macadamia nuts. They can be expensive. Once again, go to Costco. You can get a big bag for a very reasonable price. I make macadamia nut cookies that are very, very tasty. Almonds, we get almond flour. Trader Joe's, you can get almond flour so cheap at Trader Joe's. And you can make things like almond bread out of it. And there's some really good recipes and some of those online resources that you have. If not, ping me. I'll send you guys some of these favorite recipes of mine. Yeah. Okay. Are you allergic to all nuts or just almonds?
Almonds, hazelnuts, peanuts.
Yeah, that is trickier. It's definitely trickier. Kind of looking back up, it would be tricky for you to do some of those nut flours because even the coconut flour is going to have a little more carbohydrates in it. So you might just have to stick to some of the non-nut. I'll research that for you and see if there's anything that comes to mind. I don't know if we got everybody's names. I'll have to, somebody write that down as a note. I'll have to research that, alternative nut flours, to see what I can find out. That's a good question. Fermented foods, dill pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi. Anybody in here like sauerkraut, kimchi? Oh, these things are amazing. You can eat like endless amounts of these things. They're so great because they have those healthy bacteria in them for your gut. So, so good. Coconut milk kefir, coconut milk yogurt. I know that I really enjoy coconut milk kefir. Apple cider vinegar. I mean, you can, go ahead.
No, I want to ask about the organic, because I've always heard that organic and all natural are the same thing, but the only thing that makes organic is the government put their seal on it.
That's a great question. So marketing is what it really boils down to. So marketing tactics. Anybody can say, it's all natural. There's no regulation on the word natural. And so our society is obsessed with health foods. So a lot of times what you'll see is made with some organic ingredients or all natural. These are a lot of times just marketing fluff, right? One easy way to look at it too is, especially if you're buying produce, not so much for packaged foods, which if you're following this, you're not going to be eating a lot of packaged foods anyways. With produce, what you're really looking for usually has a little sticker on it, and there's that barcode on it, and then there's a number on top of that barcode. So if the number starts with an 8, that means that it's genetically modified. If it starts with a 9, and it'll tell you if it's organic, right? They'll tell you on there if it's organic. It'll start with a 9. And then if it's not genetically modified, but maybe they've used pesticides and things like that on it, it'll start with a 4. So really you just have to look at the labels that say USDA organic, and it's a round symbol. It's half green, half white, but you'll see the symbol on there. It says USDA organic. But there is a difference. It's not just fluff. They have to go through different procedures in farming. They have different farming practices. They're not allowed to use certain pesticides or herbicides. They have to do crop rotation. There's a lot they have to do in order to have that stamp of approval with organic. So it is regulated. But it's a good question. We hear that a lot. Question? Yeah, so meat substitutes was his question. What about meat substitutes? So if you're vegan or vegetarian, right, you have to work within the realms of what you believe and what you want to do. A lot of times those are derived from soy. On a lot of these diets, we don't recommend soy. It's a phytoestrogen. So it can mess with hormone levels if you eat a lot of it, right? And everybody's different in how it's going to impact their bodies. I can't tell you absolutely don't eat it, you know. But it is something to consider. Then you have to consider the carbohydrate content in that too. Especially if you are eating soy and you're trying to get into this, just document it once again. If that's part of your belief system and what you want to do. And I would just say to make sure it's absolutely organic. Soy is the #1 genetically modified food in America. So because of soybean oil, think about, if you look at any kind of packaged foods, you're going to probably find some form of the word soy in there. So so just if you are eating things like tempeh or tofu, some of those other meat alternatives, just make sure it's organic and just try to stick to those carbs, really, at the end of the day, is good practice. So. And, there's other things you can do, amino acid supplements and things like that too. So if you're concerned about your protein profile, there's other ways you can do it. And then lastly, this is probably the most popular question, natural keto sweeteners. So I think our biggest fear, a lot of us are emotional eaters. I can be an emotional eater. When I'm stressed out, give me sugar, or I'm tired, give me sugar. And sometimes it's just craving that something sweet. The good news is things like monk fruit It's not quite as popular. You're starting to see it a little bit more on some packages. Stevia and sugar alcohols. Now, I will tell you, I stick mostly with stevia. You can buy it in drops. You can buy it in powder form. A little bit goes a long, long way. So if you've never used it before, read the directions on the bottle. A little bit goes a long way. The other thing I'll say, it has xylitol and erythritol. These are sugar alcohols. That's why they have the OL at the end. I really don't use too much of these just because they are somewhat distressing on the gut, aka if you eat too many of them, you will be passing a lot of gas. So just be warned. You know, you see it in like natural gums. You can buy like xylitol gum if you're a gum chewer, or you know, just kind of need that fix. And you'll see it in some of the other keto snacks sometimes. Just be cautious of it. Really, I stick to stevia. Is really the only one I use. I just tried out a new keto snack. It was keto bark, and it has hazelnuts, and it's just chocolate. It's cocoa, keto bark. Write that one down, it's really good. But it does have that monk fruit in it and some stevia. So it's in some of the products. There's a lot more keto snacks coming out on the market. If you just put the word keto on Amazon, it'll pop up a whole bunch of different snacks that you can try. You know, I try to cook mostly at home. I try to indulge in some of those snacks just too much, but sometimes we all need a crutch to lie on. So some of those keto snacks can really be helpful. But before I go on, does anybody have any questions? This is really like your approved food list to kind of get you started. And there's some recipes in there to get you started. Don't make it complicated, right? Sometimes when we're starting a diet, we want to put a lot of pressure on ourselves and overcomplicate it in our head. It's really simple. If you're used to eating eggs in the morning, eat eggs in the morning. If you're, eat a salad for lunch. You can have protein, you can have veggies, you can have salads. Salad dressing is another good way to get your healthy fats in. We do different types of dressings with different oils. You can get really creative. Some of these paleo magazines, you'll see at like Earth Fare or Whole Foods. I just got a really good one. I'll have to post it when I get home because it's been my favorite magazine so far. I forgot to bring it. But it has some really great salad dressing recipes in there, and sometimes a good salad dressing can make a world of a difference in some of the salads that we eat and really spice it up. We've done, I think, curry chicken salad. We've done Asian chicken salad. I'm trying to think, Thai chicken salad. We've done all these different ones, and they've all been really, really good, and it's fun. But oil, just, you can put MCT oil and lemon, lime, salt, and pepper, and that can be your salad dressing. A little bit of vinegar if you want vinegar. You saw fermented foods, you can have vinegar. So that's another really, really nice one. Toasted sesame oil, that's another nice little additive to put on some of your salads. Get creative, make them crunchy. Even coconut flakes, unsweetened coconut flakes. If you're used to a crunch or croutons, put some sliced almonds, except for you. You can use those coconut flakes also to give it a little crunch and a little texture. So there's lots of really, really good things we can do. I am rolling over here on time, but there's so many good things to share with you guys. Okay, so before I go, any questions? Yes.
Calories and fat. How do you get enough vitamins and minerals?
That's a good question. So, we can overcomplicate. That's one important reason of why eating organic. Another component people don't realize when we're not eating organic produce, a lot of times the nutritional content of that produce is really, there's not much there. Because what that means is that they've either genetically modified it or they're injecting it with alternative food colorings, or they're, the soil that they're growing it in essentially has no nutrients left. So then because the soil is nutrient deficient, then the vegetable or fruit becomes nutrient deficient. And that's the importance of picking those organic things. Now, of course, you can take a good multivitamin too, a reputable multivitamin. Jeff's friend, Dr. Danny Papa, he's got, it's Revolution Health. He's got an online store that has, quality nutrients that you could buy for a good multivitamin. There's a plethora of things on there and recommendations. I think Dr. Danny even talks about it in some of his talks that he does. So that's something to keep in mind too. But yeah, you can get, you might be deficient today, so I can't tell you, oh yeah, just by eating this diet, you're gonna improve all your deficiencies. I can't promise that, but if you're eating these organic vegetables, some fruits, healthy fats, and some proteins, you should be getting the nutritional content that you need. Think about limes and lemons, tons of vitamin C there, right? Our protein, healthy meats have B vitamins in them. I crave red meat, and I joke with Jeff, I'm like, it's because I'm craving those B vitamins. That's why I crave red meat. I'm a red meat eater for sure, more so than he. But there's even a whole science behind that, some of your cravings and what it could mean depending upon your nutritional content. But by no means am I going to promise that this diet's going to fix that. But if you're eating organic, lots of veggies, even remembering that your meats have those good vitamins and minerals in them too, you should be okay. But it's never a bad thing to do, visit with your doctor, get some tests done, and check into that.
Style change
Great question.
or temporary?
Yep. So she asked, on this diet, is this going to be like, am I eating like this forever, or is this temporary? This is not forever. So there's, going back to that video, I really want you guys to watch, follow Dr. Danny Pompa. He talks about diet variation. So when we think about, and I'm going to repeat everything I learned from him, when we think about ancient times, people ate seasonally, right? So there was times where they weren't eating hardly anything at all, aka fasting. And then comes produce in summer, and they're eating tons and tons of carbs, right? And then comes fall and winter, and they're eating more proteins and animal foods than they are produce. So no, this isn't meant to be forever. What he recommends on that is talking about you can do a weekly variation where you're doing, ketogenic 6 out of 7 days a week and have one feast day. He recommends doing it monthly. If you're just first getting started and maybe you have some health conditions you're battling, you can do it. You can do ketogenic for 2 to 3 months in one block of time. So it's really about listening to your body. It's about measuring those ketone levels, because something else, your body will tell you really quickly if it's been in a ketogenic state for too long, because you'll go into a state called ketoacidosis. And that's where your ketone levels are rising above that 5.0 level. If you get into that state, that's a red flag. You need to come out of ketogenic diet, and you need to start introducing some carbs back into it.
What is MCT or an SCT oil?
So MCT is medium chain triglycerides, which if you go to either like a health food store like Garner's or Earth Fare, Whole Foods, I can't say for Publix, I'm not sure, but it's in the supplement aisle usually, and it comes in a bottle, and it'll say MCT oil on it. And you can always ask somebody, and they'll direct you to where it's at. They usually have helpers. And then SCT is that short chain triglyceride. So it's just talking about the different lengths of the triglyceride molecules and how we digest them. MCTs, we digest very quickly. So we actually digest MCTs in the liver as quickly as we would a glucose molecule. So what it's telling you is it's quick energy. That's why they like to recommend it. It's really easy to digest. Great question. But yeah, definitely watch that video on diet variation. This isn't intended forever. Now, of course, there's some people who have medical conditions. They might stay in it longer depending on what they're going through and what they're trying to achieve. But just for some standard health, just like, when you're going to work out, what do they tell you? They tell you, oh, you shouldn't just lift weights. You need to do cardio too, and it's muscle confusion. Well, the same thing goes for our diet. We don't want to just eat ketogenic. We want to introduce healthy carbs in from time to time too. So it really depends on your journey and where you're at, whether you want to do it weekly, monthly. or in more of those seasonally, right, blocks of time, ketogenic diet. But that's a really, really great question. You don't want to stay in it forever, and there's health benefits and detriments if you do, like I was saying, ketoacidosis if you stay in it for too long. So really, really great question. What's that? I'm sorry. How long do I? Well, I want to say the longest I've probably been in ketogenic is probably a month. I'm in week 2 now of my next cycle. So I haven't, my goal right now is to stay in for it for minimum of 2 months, maybe 3. I've got some dental work that I'm going to get done here in about a month, so I really want my body in a low inflammatory state so my body can heal quicker. So that's my purpose in getting into it. So it's just different for everybody, and like I said, it goes back to some of these books will really explain and guide you, and some of these podcasts will really help you. It's kind of like being in the Word every day. You gotta dig in, and what we're doing for you today is just introducing something to you, right? This is a new way of thinking about a new diet, of accomplishing whatever it is you're trying to overcome or accomplish. A lot of times it's not just one thing, it's a multitude of things, right? It's getting a good adjustment, it's having proper nutrition, making sure we're living a stress-free life as much as we can, getting exercise in when we need it. And I'll remind you again, exercise, listen to your body. Even now I'm only walking, I'm not doing anything else, and I'm in week 2. I'm just listening to what my body needs, and right now I feel good, and I'm just doing the walking, and that's good enough. So listen to what your body's telling you. All right, I know we're running late here. Fat fasting. So I was talking to you about the keto coffee. So really what it's saying is if you're trying to get into ketosis, another thing you can do instead of doing like a water fast for 5 days or a bone broth fast for 5 days, which is something you can do, you can also do what's called fat fasting. And you consume nothing but fat and water for a day or a multiple couple days if you really want to kickstart into ketogenic. And basically it's just doing, I think he calls it the 5 2s, where you take on 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, 2 tablespoons of MCT oil, 2 tablespoons of ghee, and 2 tablespoons of those SCTs, and then 2 teaspoons of salt. So tablespoons for the fat, teaspoon for the salt, and that's all you consume. Drink lots of water, herbal tea, coffee, and this gentleman that was giving this, he does it for 20 to 24 fat fasts for 3 days each week. So that's the thing, is you can, once you really get into this and talking about that adaptation of going from ketogenic into carbs and then back, you can get into days where maybe you fast for 2 days a week, or you fast for 3 days a week, where you don't eat anything, or you do a fat fast. And fasting is a whole nother, topic that probably needs a whole nother night to go over. Fasting is spiritual. Fasting relates to rebalancing those hormone levels. I know Jeff and I did it for a week or 5 days at the beginning of the year. I want to say his friend is getting ready to do, you can join Dr. Danny Pompa. He does fasting for a purpose, and it's all faith-based and health-based. So that's something else too. He does these at different times in the year, and you can join his online group and fast with his group, and he tells you exactly how to do it. It's amazing. I'm probably due for another fast, but I'm doing ketogenic right now, so that works for me. But once again, they talk about, even from a spiritual perspective, of spiritual breakthroughs, or because you're in that acute state of mentality. Sometimes you hear things maybe you were distracted from before doing some of those fasts. There's a book that I started reading. I can't even pretend to say his last name. It's called Fasting, Opening the Door to a Deeper, More Intimate, More Powerful Relationship with God. So it just talks about, you can make it spiritual. Maybe your journey and goals and intentions for this diet is spiritual. Maybe it's a health reason. Maybe it's You just want more energy and mental clarity. It could be a lot of different reasons why, or weight loss. But this sometimes is nice to do with any type of diet because it walks you through, it keeps you dedicated. Just giving you some resources to look at. Jensen Franklin, Jentezen, and then Franklin. Thank you. All right. Okay, that's another one. There's so much to go over here. Where am I at here? All right, that talks about the 5-2 rule I was just talking about. 2 tablespoons of MCT, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and this is every day. This is a good way to get your fat in. Like I said, you can put the MCT oil on your salad. You can put that ghee in your coffee, olive oil or avocados. I know we do a lot of avocados in our shakes. We do a bone broth protein shake that's sweetened with stevia. And then we put avocado in it. We put celery in it. We put a little mint. And it tastes wonderful. So there's lots of different ways you can get guacamole. Any guacamole lovers in here? Yeah. We've almost every night, I chop up bell peppers, I chop up celery, I chop up cucumbers, and we use it as chips to eat our guacamole, especially that celery. It's really, really good. It's really tasty this time of year. I use it as a chip. No chips, though. You said chips? Kale chips, that's another, speaking of chips, that's a good one to use. You can buy kale chips. Jeff has been obsessed these last couple nights. He's been making kale chips. It's just, you just get kale, you put some like a tablespoon of olive oil on it, and a little bit of salt. He bakes it in the oven at 350, I think for what, five minutes or so. It's so tasty, and it's crunchy too. So that's another thing you can do is get kale chips. I know it sounds so funny, but there's so many things you can do. There's a plethora of stuff. I've got some really great recipes. Maybe I should copy for church on Sunday. It'll be a good motivator to get you all back in here to hand out with some of my favorite recipes that we make on a regular basis. All right, keep moving forward here. Almost through. That just once again talks about the 5-2 rule if you want it to do 5 days ketogenic and then doing the 2 days of that fat fast. Moving forward, we already talked about that. Here he's talking about the feast and famine. This goes back to the question you asked. It's really about that diet variation, feast and famine. So figure out what works for you. You may want to get to a place of where you're in ketosis for maybe a couple weeks and then try something like this out. If you try this out right away, you might not stay in that ketogenic state like you want, but try this out. And this is what a lot of these holistic doctors and advocates of the ketogenic diet are doing, right? Where they're doing feast and famine. They have a day where they feast, they eat carbohydrates, eat 3 meals a day, and then they go through a couple days of fasting, and then they're in ketosis again. So it's really, like going back to the analogy of working out, that muscle confusion, you're making your body adapt and utilizing different hormones, and it increases their ability to do their job. So it's really keeping that confusion going on and keeping your body intelligent. All right. I don't want to bore you guys to death, but here we go. These are just talking about some supplements you could take if you wanted. I'm not going to dig into any of that. That's some more supplements. That's just a resource. That's the gentleman's guide we went over tonight. You can go to his website. He has a ton of information on his website. The Ultimate Keto Guide, like I was telling you, I gave you a resource. Dr. Mercola has an amazing article about the ketogenic diet. He's got a book called Fat for Fuel. I haven't gotten that book yet. That's on my to-do list. I told myself I had to read these books before I was allowed to order any more. But he has an amazing, amazing book called Fat for Fuel that you can also get. The nice thing is you can get these things on Amazon. Sometimes you can get these used books for a couple dollars, right? You don't have to spend a fortune to get this. And a lot of this stuff is on the internet. You don't have to pay anything for it, right? And you've got diet guides, you've got recipes. Like I said, we've made the keto ice cream from there. I make the chia pudding, which is one of my new favorite snacks. It's chia seeds, coconut milk. You let it set for about 2 hours. The chia seeds get kind of thick, and it's like a pudding-like material. It's one of my favorite snacks, and it's full of healthy fats and some proteins. So that's a nice way to have a good snack on hand. The other thing I would say is just prep. I kind of have in my mind what I'm going to make the night before, or sometimes I make extra, so I have lunch for the next day. The key is having some of these, fresh produce on hand, so when you get hungry, you don't want to slip up. We always have celery, we always have cucumbers, we always have bell peppers. Usually I always have chia seeds on hand. We always have nuts on hand. I mean, worst case scenario, grab some raw cashews, right? Grab some raw almonds, macadamia nuts. You can't go wrong unless you can't have nuts. But there's lots. It's really easy. When you think about where we were 100 years ago, they probably ate ketogenic quite a bit of time out of the year, right? Just by the seasonal, natural way of our world. So we overcomplicate it because we've got all these prepackaged foods and Doritos and this chip and this dessert and that dessert. So don't complicate it for yourself. Just go back to simple eating. It doesn't take a lot of effort to eat a piece of celery. It doesn't take a lot of effort to grab a handful of nuts. So just leave you with that piece. We get ourselves all tied up in it. But so lots of resources. So I'm getting ready to close out. Who has questions still? Bryce, you don't count. Okay, thank you. Questions at home. So just a reminder, right, this is one tool. This is one asset for you guys. And I promise you will feel amazing. If you give it some time and stick to it, you'll see some amazing results. If you do have things like type 2 diabetes, just make sure you're watching your blood sugar levels like you would any other thing. I'm not telling you to do this and not that. You've got to listen to your special situation. But you will feel so amazing. And when you have that energy and that mental clarity, it even wants you to be a better servant, right? You can take on more. You're more positive. You're more excited to engage with people. It's just so many blessings come from when we just pay attention to what we put in our mouths, and more importantly, what we don't put in our mouths. It makes huge impact. So I hope you got a lot of useful knowledge out of this. I gave you some really great resources. I will hold my promise. I'll print out some of my favorite recipes. So that'll be a great, if you come to church on Sunday, you will get the benefit of some of my favorite recipes. And if not, hopefully Jeff and I will be doing some more of these talks. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy.